folks, Rob Daniels here for the movie, TV, and video game soundtrack program Visions in Sound. I can be found every Saturday morning, 12 to 2 a.m. on 98.5 CKWR, and I can also be found on my website, visionsinsound.ca. Yeah. So, this video today is going to be a bit strange because it has very little to do with soundtracks. In fact, it has nothing to do with soundtracks. How do I put this? I'm recording this on the 9th of November, and tomorrow, the 10th of November, will be the 50th anniversary of the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald on Lake Superior. Now, it seems weird that I would take a moment out and want to talk about this song, but it's become such a legend in its own right. The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald was actually not the first Gordon Lightfoot song I ever heard, and I didn't even realize that I'd heard a Gordon Lightfoot song. There was a Roger Whittaker album that came out, I believe it was called Travelin', and on that album is a song called Patriot's Dream. And that was the first song of Gordon Lightfoot's I think I ever realized I ever heard, or I'd ever heard.
The songs of the wars are as old as the hills. They cling like the rust on the cold steel that kills. They tell of the boys who went down to the tracks in a patriotic manner with the cold steel on their back.
The songs of the wars are as old as the hills. They cling like the rust on the cold steel that kills. They tell of the boys who went down to the tracks in a patriotic manner with the cold steel on their backs.
So it sent me on this journey, and I would always know that the song, for some reason, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald would always come up. His other songs, not so much, although I know my parents did have Gordon Lightfoot albums. So for me, my first exposure to Gordon Lightfoot was eventually The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. And for a while, it was the only song of his I really knew. And for me, it spoke to me on a level that I can't quite put words to. I love storytelling. I love the idea of the storytellers, the people who can write the songs like this and get to a certain point and have a coherent song at the end. I want us to remember this is 1976. Probably written a little bit before that, obviously, because it was 1975. And so this almost 50-year-old song, and I was in 75 when the wreck happened. I was 5 years old. I was, I didn't know things. I wasn't worldly. I was just, as someone would once told me, I was barely out of short pants. So, for me, the song stayed in the background for the longest time. And then got my license, and I started listening to music in the car and that sort of thing. And then all of a sudden, out of all of the songs that I was listening to, especially on long trips, when I would take long trips, I would want something that was a good album. And so I would listen to Gord's Gold and Gord's Gold 2. I would have those two albums listening when CD players were still in cars. and that sort of thing. So that's my exposure to the music of Gordon Lightfoot. And of course I went on. I mean, of course I have, Patriot's Dream was off of Don Quixote. And of course we know all the big ones on Don Quixote: Alberta Bound, Ode to Big Blue, On Susan's Floor, and of course Don Quixote, the track, the main title track. But yeah, I mentioned Gord's Gold, where I first had a long. I mean, at first I would listen to Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, but then I started discovering other stuff. Alberta Bound and Canadian Railroad Trilogy, and all of the songs that he would become well known for. And I eventually picked up Summertime Dream, which is the actual album where the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald comes from. It's a 1976 album. So that's my association with the Edmund Fitzgerald, the story there. But I remember once being told by another friend of mine that I was too young to be listening to Gordon Lightfoot. That's the funny part about all of this. Too young. How can you be too young to be listening to this songsmith who would write such fantastic stories about Canada and stories about, love and all of the things that he went through? From what I understand, and this might not be quite true, or this may not be quite accurate, but this is what I've been told, that Lightfoot wrote The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald because of the quick passing over of the story in a Michigan newspaper. And it kind of enraged him a little bit, enough to write a song about it. He grabbed a whole bunch of newspapers and set them down, making sure that he got every aspect accurate. And he wrote this song.
The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down of the big lake they call Gitchagumi. The lake, it is said, never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn gloomy.
And I've become a bit of a songwriter recently, and I wish I had the same poetry that Lightfoot brings to his songs. I wish I had that. So, I mean, the history of the ship is it was quite a well-known wharf raider. It would move steel from where it was to where it needed to go. And it was bigger. It was huge. It carried a lot of steel. So the weather has changed here in Canada. We actually had our first snowfall today. And it makes me think of how out on the lake, and I've done I used to do a bit of sailing here and there. So the water speaks to me, I guess, in a lot of ways. Been sailing, done this, done that. And it's funny how over the years songs change. Circumstances change, people change. The song may stay the same, but it means something a little bit different. And like I said, the story of the Edmund Fitzgerald, I'd never really taken it in before 29 men. These men were, these men had families, they had friends, they all lived. And to hear their peril put through the filter of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald is heartbreaking.
When supper time came, the old cook came on deck saying, fellas, it's too rough to feed you. At 7 p.m. a main hatchway caved in. He said, fellas, it's been good to know you. The captain wired in, he had water coming in, and the good ship and crew was in peril. Later that night, when his lights went out of sight, came the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
There is a lyric in the song that is probably one of my favorite lyrics from Lightfoot, and that it's a simple question, but it gives me chills every time I hear it.
Does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours?
And he asks, does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours? We ask ourselves that question, I guess, about God a lot. Is where does it go? Where does he go when bad things happen? And whenever I hear that lyric, like I said, it always gives me chills. So I actually don't know where I wanted to go with this, other than to say that there were so many ships. There have been so many ships that have sunk in Lake Superior. 6,000 apparently. But it took one Canadian to write about an American ship that he felt was not given its proper due. In fact, from what I recall, the Edmund Fitzgerald was misspelled in the newspaper article that he read. So that's enough. And like I said, I wish I could write as well as Lightfoot does. He spins this story, and I've seen people react to this song, and I've heard people do covers of this song. There are some really good covers out there. Check them out. I'm not going to play them here, but check them out. People who look upon this more as like a sea shanty and a legend than an actual story of real people. And something that happened potentially within their lifetimes. So on this 50th anniversary of the remembrance of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, take a moment, if nothing else, to remember the 29 men that died that day. And I ask myself again, what is it about this song that speaks to me? the way it's presented. No chorus. It's a ballad, straight through. Tells a story. And like I said, I love the storytelling. And that lyric, that one line that asks that question that I'm sure went through the minds of all the men that were there or on that ship that day. So yeah, take a moment. Remember the 29 men. Remember the thousands that Superior never gave up. The lyric, Superior, it is said, never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn gloomy. So yeah, I didn't mean to have this be a kind of a sad affair, but I do need for people to take time out to remember their own histories. Remember recent history. Don't put yourself in a bubble. Learn, read, understand. If you've never heard of the Edmund Fitzgerald before, look it up. Even if you listen to the song, it gives you a basic idea of what the story is all about. Then follow it up. One of the things that I am very, very passionate about is remembering your history. Knowing things. I remember, know your history. That's all I'll say. So with that in mind, I'm not going to do a like, share, and subscribe on this one. But I am going to say that if you're having trouble, please call 911 for immediate help. Dial or text 988 for the Suicide Crisis Helpline. You can try 1-844 here 247 and here 247.ca. All offer ways of getting help if you or someone you know may be suffering from mental health issues. The legend does live on. We miss you, Gord. Thanks for giving us a song that speaks to a lot of people on a lot of levels. So, have yourself a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
The bell will be taken to the Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Museum at Whitefish Point. In its place, a new brass bell, inscribed with the names of the 29 men who died, will become an eternal memorial, returned forever to the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
All stop, come down the belt. Perfect.
Perfect, Bruce. Nice work.
Power down.
We pray that this bell that goes down on this ship will be a sign to everyone to remember the dignity of this place and keep it a place of gentle solitude.
It is with great pride and a great deal of humility that I present this bell on behalf of the people of Ontario to the people of Michigan, and especially to the families of the Edmund Fitzgerald crew.
The men deserve the memorial, and they should have had it a long time ago, but they finally got it.
In a musty old hall in Detroit, they prayed in the Maritime Sailors' Cathedral. A
church bell chimed till it rang 29 times for each man on the Edmund Fitzgerald. The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down of the big lake they call Gitchagumi. Superior, they said, never gives up her dead when the gales of November come early.